Welcome to the deep dive. Sometimes the most intense battles aren't fought in boardrooms or on distant battlefields, but right there, next to you, at the office. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a powerful narrative that shows just how easily trust can shatter, but also how incredible resilience and, well, sharp thinking can prevail against seemingly impossible odds. Our mission for you, our listener, is to pull out the crucial steps taken, the surprising details uncovered, and, the profound lessons learned from one individual's journey to clear their name and expose the truth.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is how the story unfolds. It begins with what seems like a really close professional friendship, only to gradually reveal the, well, insidious nature of ambition when it turns toxic.
Yeah.
We're going to highlight the very specific technical and interpersonal details that ultimately brought this profound conflict to a resolution.
Okay, so let's unpack the very beginning. This is centered around the narrator and a guy named Rohan Malhotra at Central Solutions in Bangalore. What was that initial connection like? How did it look from the outside?
Well, they actually joined the company, this mid-sized tech consultancy, just about a month apart. The narrator remembers meeting Rohan in the pantry, struggling with the coffee machine.
Ah, the classic office challenge.
Exactly. The godforsaken coffee machine, as they put it. Rohan just strolled in, mug in hand, offered to help. He came across as, helpful, witty, always ready with a sarcastic joke, or, importantly, a solution.
And it sounds like that bond really grew from there. They sat near each other?
Yeah, across from each other in the DevOps wing, that's the team bridging development and operations, getting software out there. And they started sharing personal stuff. The narrator opened up about a breakup, supporting family back in Chennai, even this dream of launching their own digital platform someday.
Wow, so pretty close then, sharing dreams, personal struggles.
Definitely. They even had a ritual, grabbing lunch at this tiny South Indian place across the street, Rayo Delight, discussing everything, bad dates, office gossip. The narrator called it a lifeline.
Mm-hmm. But even with that closeness, you mentioned ambition turning toxic. Were there signs?
That's the thing. Looking back, the narrator realized there were, red flags. Things maybe ignored at the time. Rohan would talk about climbing the corporate ladder almost. Almost like it was war.
Like a war. That's intense framing for an office job.
It is, and it points to a zero-sum mindset, right? If someone else wins, you lose. Trust doesn't really survive that kind of environment. It's a huge red flag in any workplace.
So what did that warlike behavior actually look like day to day? Any specific examples?
Oh, yeah. He hated seeing anyone else get credit. Absolutely hated it. There was this one time a colleague, Mira, got a shout out from the VP for fixing some tricky deployment issue.
Okay.
Rohan basically sulked for days, claimed he had actually fixed it.
Wow.
And then there were the jokes, like saying only one of them could become team lead.
Oh.
And it would obviously be him, the one drinking black coffee, who actually knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
The narrator just brushed it off, thought he was being dramatic, never saw him as real competition.
Right. You just don't expect that from someone you consider a friend, a lifeline even. And then things took a really sharp turn, didn't they? What kicked it all off?
Yeah, it started with an email early Monday morning from their team lead, Akil Menon. Subject line: urgent missing client files.
Urgent missing files. Never good. Which client?
A U.S.-based one, Glenford Technologies. Key configuration files like the essential settings for their software system had just vanished from the shared project repository. Not just moved, gone, wiped. No version history, no trace, just gone.
Whoa, okay, that sounds bad. What were the immediate consequences for the company?
Catastrophic, potentially. Glenford's deployment was scheduled for Wednesday that same week. Missing these files, that meant missing the deadline, breaching the contract.
Big financial penalties, I imagine?
Huge costs, penalties, and massive reputational damage. The stakes were incredibly high.
So absolute panic stations, I guess. What was the immediate reaction in the office? And the narrators?
Total panic. Audit logs, the system records of who did what when were pulled immediately. Everyone's access reviewed. The narrator was actually calm initially. They had this habit of backing up project parts to a local drive, just in case.
Smart move.
Very. They restored some folders quietly and messaged Rohan something like, looks like someone messed up bad. Okay. No reply from Rohan. Which, in hindsight, yeah. Then, around noon, the narrator gets called into conference room C.
Uh-oh. Who was there?
Akil, the team lead, Deepa from HR, and Sanjay Kapoor, the senior manager. The narrator said the blood just drained from their face the moment they walked in. Akil slid a printout across the table, said, We found unusual activity traced back to your login credentials.
Oh, no.
Specifically, the deletion logs point to your profile on Friday night.
Friday night. But wait, didn't the narrator have an alibi?
A rock-solid one. They actually laughed at first, thinking it was a mistake. Friday night, they weren't even near the office. They were out in Koramangala, having dinner with a college friend, Sneha, celebrating her new job.
So they could prove it.
Absolutely. Pictures, texts, the restaurant bill from Sultans of Spice, solid alibi. But in that room, at that moment, it didn't matter. All the managers saw was the log, the timestamp, a digital fingerprint, as the narrator put it, pointing straight at them.
Man, that's chilling. How digital evidence without context can just indict you?
Exactly. It can be easily misinterpreted or, worse, weaponized.
So what happened right after the accusation, the immediate fallout?
Swift and brutal. Access suspended immediately, ID card disabled, told to stay available for the internal inquiry, but absolutely do not come into the office.
Basically suspended without saying suspended.
Pretty much. And then Rohan's message finally came through.
What did she say?
Just, let me know if you need anything. That was it. No shock, no concern, no defending his friend.
Wow, just flat.
Completely flat. And the narrator said that was the moment something inside them just shifted. It wasn't just being accused anymore. It felt like betrayal. Deep betrayal.
So now the narrator's cut off, isolated, under suspicion. What was that period like?
Awful. Some of the worst days, apparently. Word travels fast in an office, right? People stopped making eye contact. Conversations just died when they walked into the pantry. Even the new intern, Adafire, who used to ask for help with bash scripting, started avoiding them like I had the plague. Officially still employed, but effectively an outcast.
That sounds incredibly isolating. But it seems like during this time, pieces started clicking into place for the narrator.
Yes, exactly. While dealing with the isolation, they started thinking, processing things. Rohan had been deeply involved in that specific Glenford project. Very deeply. And crucially, Rohan had admin-level server access. Same level as the narrator.
Okay, so not many people could have done this without raising alarms.
Very few. Only the narrator, Rohan, and the senior manager, Sanjay. Anyone else trying a remote breach like that, especially involving shared drives and VPN tokens, those secure digital keys, it likely would have triggered multiple alerts. But someone with existing admin access, maybe not.
And Rohan's past comments started sounding different.
Totally. Those offhand comments, that little smirk he sometimes had, joking about ghosting teammates in Jira, the project tool, so he could quietly take credit for their work. It all started playing back like warning bells. Things dismissed before suddenly seemed significant.
It's amazing how context changes everything.
Isn't it? We often miss subtle signs until it's almost too late.
And then came what the narrator called the final blow. What was that?
An email from HR, formally recommending termination, pending final review. It stated the inquiry team had sufficient evidence linking the breach to the narrator's login.
Sufficient evidence. But they hadn't checked the alibi properly.
And get this, they hadn't even checked if the VPN access came from the narrator's physical location. Basic verification.
Seriously, that seems like Investigation 101 for something like this.
You'd think so. The narrator just pictured Rohan sitting there, sipping from his ridiculous Batman mug, acting innocent. And that was it. The realization hit hard. Rohan wasn't just letting me fall, he pushed me.
Wow. That changes everything. From being a victim of circumstance to realizing you were actively set up.
A complete shift. And that's when the narrator decided, okay, no more defense, time to fight back.
Okay, so this is the turning point, the decision to stop playing defense. How did they start?
Well, first, they gave themselves one day to process the HR email. Cry, eat ice cream, scream into a pillow, whatever it took.
Totally understandable. You need that moment.
For sure. But the next morning, woke up, tied their hair back, and it was like, okay, if they won't find the truth, I will. That proactive stance is key, right? Not just waiting for others.
Absolutely. So what were the first practical steps? Digging into their own stuff?
Exactly. Started with their own system logs on their personal laptop. They sometimes mirrored office files there for emergencies within policy. And then a crucial detail surfaced. Friday night, the night of the deletion. 10:46 p.m. according to the audit report.
Yes.
The narrator remembered leaving their company-issued laptop at work. They didn't have it with them.
Okay, that's big. And the alibi confirmation.
Texted Sneha, the friend from dinner. Sneha immediately sent back a screenshot from her Insta story. Timestamp, 10:09:48 p.m. Friday, showing the narrator mid-bite into a butter naan at Sultans of Spice.
Perfect timing. Physical proof, digital proof, matching up.
Perfectly aligned. Hard to argue with that.
But they needed more technical firepower, right? To
Uh-huh.
understand how it could have happened from their account.
Right. So they reached out to Enor, a junior IT analyst they'd helped out before, kept it hypothetical at first, asked, could someone theoretically clone a colleague's access credentials, log in from a different machine using shared tokens?
Clever way to ask. What did Enor say?
Enor said technically yes,
Yeah.
but, and this was the key part, only if they had access to both the tokens and the company laptop or maybe the remote desktop login.
Mm.
And crucially, he added, those logs live on the server, though. It would show the device used.
Ah, the click moment.
That was it, the click.
Yeah.
If the narrator's credentials were used, there had to be a record somewhere of the device used, an IP address, a MAC address, something identifying the source of the login.
Not just who logged in, but where they logged in from.
Precisely. This wasn't just about who, but how and from where.
Okay, so armed with this potential technical angle, how did the narrator make HR pay attention?
They used the official channels, filed a request under the employee's grievance policy, asked for an independent review of all admin-level login logs around the time of the breach, not just their own logs, all of them.
Smart. Broaden the scope. Did HR bite?
Initially, they tried to brush it off. Standard procedure, findings are clear, blah, blah, blah. But the narrator knew their rights and the law. They gently but firmly mentioned Section 66 of the IT Act.
India's cybercrime law.
Exactly. Pointed out that firing them without reviewing all the technical evidence, that could be wrongful dismissal, and potentially grounds for a criminal complaint under the IT Act.
Okay, that definitely would get HR's attention, using legal leverage.
It worked. 2 days later, Deepa from HR called back, said, we're reopening the case. There are discrepancies. That was it. The first real crack in Rohan's story. And the narrator was determined to pry it wide open.
Okay, the case is reopened. The narrator gets access to the full logs. What did they find? This is the detective work part.
Yeah, the IT team finally pulled the full server access logs for that time frame. The narrator just dove in, poring over every single entry night and day. And then, there it was, kind of hidden in the details.
What was it?
The deletion was done using the narrator's login credentials, yes. But it was done from an unrecognized machine ID, a computer identifier they didn't recognize, and crucially, logged into the VPN from an IP address located in
Whitefield.
Whitefield,
Yeah.
geographical location. Why is that significant?
Because the narrator lived in Indiranagar. Hadn't been near Whitefield in weeks. But guess who lived in Whitefield?
Let me guess. Rohan Malhotra.
Bingo. Rohan Malhotra lived in Whitefield. That's a huge connection. Smoking gun territory, almost.
Almost. But circumstantial, maybe? Did they find anything more concrete?
They did. The narrator started thinking about other digital trails. Project Communications, Slack. They requested a time-stamped export of their shared DevOps Slack channel.
What popped up? Struck gold, as they put it. Remember, the deletion happened Friday at 10:46 p.m.
Yeah.
At 10:48 p.m., just 2 minutes later, Rohan sent a message to that shared group asking, hey, has anyone backed up the Glenford configs? Just realized we might have missed something.
Whoa. Okay, on the surface, maybe sounds helpful. Concern.
Exactly. Looked casual. Innocent, even. But combined with the IP address log, the timing, it just reeked of someone planting an alibi. Like he knew they were missing because he just deleted them and was now creating a public record of concern.
Creating plausible deniability after the fact. Sneaky.
Very. Classic move to divert suspicion.
So the IP address points to his area. The Slack message looks like an alibi. But how did he get the narrator's credentials to begin with, the token?
Yes. That final piece clicked into place then. The narrator suddenly remembered something from weeks before. During a coffee break, Rohan had casually borrowed their physical security token. Just for a moment, supposedly for a quick deployment check.
That little USB thing you plug in sometimes?
Exactly. Or maybe a key fob. It seemed odd at the time, but the narrator was distracted, on a call, handed it over without much thought. Now, it made perfect sense. He must have copied the token then, cloned the access.
Created a digital duplicate of their key, waiting for the right moment to use it.
Precisely. He had the means, the motive, the team lead ambition, and now the opportunity.
Wow. Okay, so the narrator has the IP trace, the suspicious Slack message, the likely method of cloning the token. That's a solid case.
A very solid case. They gathered everything. Logs, screenshots, the Slack export, the IP trace. Even paid a freelancer online to compile a digital forensic breakdown, just to make it crystal clear.
Going the extra mile. And then
Yeah.
the confrontation with HR.
Walked right into HR. Everything printed, organized, highlighted, like a lawyer presenting their case. Deepa from HR apparently just sat there reading it all in silence for 10 solid minutes.
Must have been intense.
You bet. When Deepa finally looked up, her face was pale. All she said was, "We'll escalate this immediately." No apology then, but the narrator knew. They knew Rohan was done.
Okay, so the evidence is presented. How long did it take for the other shoe to drop, for the official confrontation?
Exactly 6 days later. The call came from Sanjay Kapoor, the senior manager. Meeting requested for the next day, 10 a.m., HR would be there, and the compliance team.
The big meeting. Was the narrator nervous?
Apparently barely slept that night, but not from fear, more like anticipation. They said they were finally about to watch the house of cards Rohan built come crashing down.
Okay, set the scene. What was the atmosphere like in that conference room?
Ice cold. Sanjay at the head of the table, Deepa from HR next to him, and beside her, Girish Arora, the head of internal security, and Rohan, already there, sipping coffee, casual as ever, even gave the narrator a smug little grin. He clearly had no clue what was about to hit him.
Wow, the obliviousness. So how did it go down? Did Sanjay just lay it out?
Pretty much. Sanjay started reading from a document, formal tone. Confirmed they'd reviewed all the submitted evidence, cross-referenced with the security audit findings, and confirmed a breach that was intentionally masked using cloned credentials and remote access manipulation. Direct language.
Okay. Did he name Rohan then?
Right then. He outlined the specific evidence against Rohan.
Right.
We have IP trace logs confirming unauthorized access from your registered home network, internal messages indicating premeditation, and a copy of the cloned access token used to impersonate Ms. Iyer's account. He laid it all out, then paused, looked straight at Rohan. "Do you have anything to say for yourself, Rohan?"
Oof. The silence must have been deafening. How did Rohan react?
About 10 seconds of dead silence. Then he started muttering, "This is insane. Anyone could have. This could have been faked. She clearly has a vendetta." But his voice was cracking. The bravado just crumbled.
Desperate denials, but then came the real clincher, right, from the head of security.
Oh yeah. Girish Arora, the security head, leaned forward. Calmly delivered the final blow. He said, "We also recovered the deleted config files."
Recovered them? Where?
"From a hidden directory on your company-issued laptop, Rohan. They were never lost. You just moved them, modified timestamps and all."
Game over. Absolutely game over. He didn't even delete them properly, just hid them on his own machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't cover his tracks well enough. And this was it. No big outbursts from Rohan, no fight left, just pale quiet. The evidence was just too much.
A stark reminder indeed. Digital trails. They're hard to erase completely.
Especially when someone knows where to look.
So the confrontation ends with Rohan silenced. What happened immediately after? How did the news spread?
Like wildfire. Faster than wildfire, as the narrator put it. By that afternoon, everyone knew. Every desk, every Slack channel was buzzing. And the way people looked at the narrator totally changed. No more avoidance. It was respect. Maybe some embarrassment, some guilt too.
And Rohan
Escorted out by security later that day. Carrying the classic cardboard box of personal items. Refused to meet anyone's eyes on the way out. The guy who tried to control the narrative had completely lost control.
just losing his job wasn't the end of it for him, though, was it? Were there longer-term consequences?
Oh, definitely. The company didn't just fire him. They filed a formal complaint under the Information Technology Act. Section 66C and 66D, identity theft and impersonation. Serious charges.
Wow, so legal action too.
Yes. Plus, he was barred from applying at any of their affiliate firms for 5 years. Blacklisted, essentially. And his digital presence vanished. LinkedIn went dark. WhatsApp last seen disappeared. Dropped out of all the tech groups.
Became a digital ghost. Did he try to resurface?
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
A few weeks later, someone forwarded the narrator a resume he'd sent to a mutual contact. Different name, but same skills, same projects listed, and a huge glaring gap in his employment timeline.
Trying to erase that whole period, did the narrator do anything?
No. They just let it be. Felt like Rohan hadn't just lost his job. He'd lost his reputation, his credibility, that feeling of being untouchable, gone. And in their field, reputation is everything.
That's a powerful consequence in itself, professional ruin.
Exactly. Sometimes the system works, even if it takes a fight.
So looking back at the whole ordeal, what were the deeper lessons? For the narrator and for us listening.
Well, the narrator's clear. They didn't walk away unscarred. It cost them sleep, confidence, faith in people. That's real damage. But they also gained something huge. A voice, a spine, and a story that reminded me never to doubt myself again.
Finding strength through adversity.
Definitely. And you know, people talk about karma. Sometimes it's not some distant cosmic thing. Sometimes, as the narrator said, karma wears a badge and carries a folder full of receipts.
I like that. And the healing process.
Often quiet. Not one big moment, but lots of small ones. The first time a teammate says, "We trust your judgment." The first project handed over without a second guess. The first time laughing in a meeting feels real again. Those small moments rebuild trust, bit by bit.
And there's a pretty significant positive outcome for the narrator professionally, too, right? Almost ironic.
Hugely ironic.
Yeah.
3 months later, offered a promotion.
Oh, cool.
To team lead, security, and risk operations.
Wow. From accused of a breach to leading the team preventing them.
Exactly. The irony wasn't lost on them, but they accepted it on my terms. They pushed for changes. Clearer escalation protocols, more transparent investigation procedures, employee representation and ethics reviews.
Using their experience to improve the system.
Precisely. And the company listened. Because, as they put it, when someone's been through the fire, they know how to spot the sparks. It wasn't just about clearing their name, it was about making things better, safer for everyone else.
That's really turning a negative into a systemic positive. So what are the big takeaways here? The core lessons?
I think the narrator put it powerfully. They used to think integrity was enough protection. But the hard lesson was, sometimes the worst comes from people you sat next to every day, who smiled at you and still held the knife behind their back. It doesn't mean becoming cynical or unkind, but it means stop being blind.
Pay attention to those red flags, maybe. Even the small ones.
Exactly. Speak up, even when our voice shakes.
Yeah.
Keep records, ask questions, know your own worth, especially when others try to bury it. And about Rohan, the narrator's final thought was just, he's not worth the space in my heart. What he did said more about his character than mine.
Letting go of the bitterness, focusing on their own integrity.
Yeah. And being grateful they didn't break, didn't stay silent, fought back even when nobody believed them initially.
It really drives home the point. This wasn't just about proving innocence. It was about proving that no one gets to write my story but me. So if you've ever felt lied about, pushed down, or made to feel like you don't belong, maybe let this deep dive be a powerful reminder for you.
Yeah, and it really raises an important question for everyone listening. In a world where digital footprints are everywhere, where information can be twisted and trust can be, frankly, fragile, what specific steps can you take? How can you protect your own digital presence, your reputation, and ensure your truth can always surface? Remember, you are stronger than you know.